Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J Moore Living. And if this is your first time tuning in, I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Today's guest is Hiroko Shimbo, who is a cookbook author, teacher, consultant, an expert on Japanese cuisine, and many people liken her to Japanese cuisine as Julia Child to French cuisine. Uh, Here is Hiroko. Konnichiwa.
こんにち
Yakoso.
は。こんにちは。ありがとうございます。Thank you for having me today.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. And before I forget, everybody, you can ask your questions online here on Facebook, and I'll be scrolling up every once in a while. You'll see me looking away. And for more information, it'll be up on the page. But Hiroko's page is Hiroko's Kitchen, and her Instagram is Hiroko Shimbo. So,
Oh, no. Instagram is Japanese Cuisine Authority.
but if you type in
Oh, Hiroko Shimbo, of
Hiroko
course.
Shimbo, it comes up.
Yes, it does.
Okay, all righty. So, Hiroko, you grew up in Japan, and I'm going to try to pronounce your university, Aoyama Gaikon University, and you got your bachelor's degree in English education. Did you know then that you were going to be in food? And, as you came to the United States, pretty much right afterwards, your compendium, The Japanese Kitchen, Mastering the Art of Japanese Cooking, was published 1 year later. As a young girl, did you know this is your path, or how did you end on that path of food?
Actually, no, I had no idea, but if I tell everything, it's too long and everything goes to sleep. So let me give you a medium short story. So
Okay.
my major was English in education, and after graduating from university, I was ready to go to the junior high school to teach English. But I realized that I didn't learn how to speak the language. That's how Japanese English education is done. More like writing, reading, lots of study on grammars.
Right.
And I just said I wasn't sure if I wanna do this. Then luckily, my mother's friend introduced me to an American security company where they were looking for typist, secretary. So I went there, and every day I spent typing letters, memos, reports. This was the Fidelity Management Research Company, Tokyo office. And the head office is in Boston. So it was quite fun. And every day, this typing and sending these reports, letters by telex. How many people knows telex now?
I remember telex a lot of people.
Okay, yeah. So then after working for years, everyone, the good close friend from my university married. And I was the only leftover. And at the office, people just started to ask me, when are you going to marry? And I said, I have no idea. And every day, the pressure is getting bigger and bigger. So I decided to quit. And after quitting, I didn't have a real job for 1 year. My father was a surgeon, and he ran a clinic attached to our house. So sometimes when he needs me, I went down to the clinic and played as a receptionist kind of role. And
Right.
also, he did lots of surgery, removing appendix. That's very common in Japan. So after the surgery, this patient stayed with us. So my mother was cooking 3 meals for 10 patients every day. So she needed me kind of in the kitchen. So that's I did for 1 year. And one day, my father's friend who came to Tokyo as a food light researcher, they asked me, "Oh, you are playing, you are not doing anything. Why don't you teach us Japanese language?" I speak Japanese language, but I had no idea how to teach to foreign people. And so back then, there is no internet. So I flipped over this thick phone book, Japanese language school, and I found one. I went there to study for half an hour, half a year, 6 months, and I got the certificate, started to teach them, and I found another language service where I could teach whole time. And mobile oil back then had a huge expatriates working and living in Japan. So I went
Okay.
to the language service owned by the mobile oil. So then teaching language is very interesting. It is not like just teaching, how are you? My name is blah, blah, blah. I like this. It's more the students every day brings lots of questions about Japanese culture, about society, about food, of course, about history of blah, blah, blah. And many of the questions were like, yesterday, I and my wife went to this Japanese restaurant. We had fantastic meal. How they make it? How to make it? Can we make at home? Well, or every day, every weekend, these people family goes to the supermarket and buy ingredients, Japanese food products, and say, "Oh, my wife is at a loss." When we go to the store, everything is in Japanese language, and we can read it. And when it comes to, say, miso, there are so many products. How to
Right.
choose them, the right one? So I started to answer these questions, and because my mom was always cooking, and she taught me so many things about food, history, nutrition, everything, preparation. And I was very interested in, okay, I don't know how to make rice vinegar. I don't know how to make sake. I don't know how to make soy sauce. So why don't I write a letter to a small factory, which are all 100 years old, 200 years old, and I just started to visit them to learn
Right.
how these products are made. And by giving more answers to the students, they started to ask me, teach us Japanese cooking. So
And that evolved. So you came to the United States in 1999. You did find the husband, right, Buzz?
in Japan,
Yes. Yes, you found him. And you came to the United States in 1999, but your first book, The Japanese Kitchen, which was a huge compendium, 500 and plus pages, 250 recipes. Is that something you started while you were living in Japan, or was that only when you got to the United States? How did that first book evolve?
Yeah. So as I teach, I visited more food companies, and many of them just I repeated the visit. And I accumulated so much knowledge, and I said, okay, I will write a book. And I have a good enough recipe from my mother, plus I was raised in Japan. So I started to write that book, and actually I have here this book
Right?
almost 5 years before moving to America, and every every month or every month I do more research. The people teach me more as a different aspect of the Japanese ingredients, and I was rewriting and rewriting. And but then my English was completely a wreck. And my husband was he was the in-house editor, and he is amazing. Amazing. He makes a he complains about my English. This is the dumbest writing, or how can you write this? But he was very patient. He edited my manuscript. I changed them frequently. I'm not sure, 100 times over 5 years course.
Right.
Then I wanted to. Back then I was living in Japan, Tokyo, but because I married to American, so I knew that I will be moving to America someday. So I came to when 1998 maybe I started to knock the publishing houses in New
Right.
York City. I had no idea how it works. I didn't have agent. My English was so bad, but so I got 20 rejections from top-notch publishing houses in New York. And everyone says, oh, your book is wonderfully written, but we don't have an audience large enough to publish your book. And some agent told me that, oh, forget about it. Why don't you have your own child? Kind of. So after this rejection, I I had no idea what I should do. Then one day, are you familiar with Lisa Akers? And she
Lisa.
is Akers, Akers,
Lisa Eckes, yes.
Akers. And
Right.
she,
Great cookbook agent.
yes, and she was having some small how to publish a book kind of seminar. I signed up and I went through this seminar with just it was hard to understand back then for me the English, but I kept her address, contact information, and when I wanted to, I had no choice. I decided to write a email or letter to her, and she responded me. And actually, she connected me to this publishing house, Harvard
Harvard.
Common Press. So this book didn't come into a being without Lisa. So I am so grateful of her, help.
Her daughters are now running the being agents on the cookbooks. The Eckes,
Yes,
Ekus, Eckes.
yeah,
Um, So that book received recognition from the International Association of Culinary Professionals. I can look on the screen here and it has the emblem. So your first book got recognition and awards, and it set the tone. We met after the book was published. You were representing a company that at the Fancy Food Show that was introducing purple sweet potato vinegar. And you got me to come over. You went like that, and I came over, and you wanted me to taste it, and it was fabulous, fabulous. And out of the thousands, 10,000, 100,000 items at these fancy food shows, this was the one that stuck. And I need to show you something. Here it is.
Wow,
I
you
still
have
have it. I still have it. It
Wait.
is, I use it judiciously because it's like sherry vinegar. It's got a wonderful flavor to it. And Food and Wine mentioned it like 2 months later. So you did a good job at that fancy food show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. The second book you did was the Sushi Experience.
Mhm.
And you were very disappointed in the sushi you were seeing here. Hold it up. They can see it. There we go. The Sushi Experience. And I'm just trying to see what the novel. There's so much about sushi, but I think a lot of people don't realize how important the sushi rice is, along with the fish and what you're doing. And the book, The Sushi Experience, you had a very famous editor work with you. And it was the same editor that worked with Julia Child. It was Judith Jones. And she worked with John Updike. She actually discovered or pulled the Diary of Anne Frank from a reject file and brought that to the American public. And you became fast friends with Judith. What was that experience like working with such a famous editor?
Okay, yeah. At the beginning, I was just, I couldn't believe it that Judith took the book. So with a kind of, and I knew that as you explained, Judith is like above the cloud person. So, and she always dressed elegantly. And the first, it was a kind of hard to approach to her, but she's a very open person. And she taught me okay, so the first manuscript, which I submitted this big,
Right.
and Judith just hand edit. It's the classic way, hand edit the manuscript with her favorite green pencil. So when they came back, it all looked like green page. So many places. And when she edit, she respects everything. And because she has so many questions, everything she reads are new. So she asks questions and the grammatical error, correction. So everything looked green. And as we did this kind of communication, maybe 10 times, and the first thing came back and I corrected. The corrected version was sent to Edith, Judith, and she does the correction. And by the end, there were not much green. And she, and she told me pay attention to detail and just be yourself. And one more. So one,
it
okay,
worked out.
yeah. And one day I asked her, why aren't you retiring? She was maybe 78 years old back then. And she said, by working every day, I meet so many wonderful people and I learn a lot from those people. And I can't stop it. So I am following her step right now.
She's amazing. There was
Yeah.
a women's culinary group here in Baltimore, and I don't know if you ever met Margaret Sullivan. May she rest in peace. She was a producer out at MPT and a friend. And Marion Cunningham was coming to Baltimore to do a video to see if she can get a show and things of that nature. And she brought her good friend, which was Judith. And we were having a dinner that night, and it was Italian, and everybody wanted to be around Marion Cunningham, and I'm sitting there talking with Judith the whole night. She was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I do want to get back. You said when it came to sushi, that there's a big difference. What separates a mediocre sushi roll from a masterful one?
Okay. So as Dara, you have asked me before. So good sushi is like a good couple. So rice, sushi fish, each has its own characteristics. Sushi rice has to be properly cooked and properly seasoned, and the temperature should be warmer side. And sushi fish, whichever placed on top or rolled in it, has to be the freshest quality and just preserved cold. So if these two meets together, it will create wonderful marriage or just a gastronomic experience. When one lacks, if sushi is good but rice is bad, it does. Sushi can't stand by itself. Both has to be good enough together, and that's the same as our marriage.
Right. Um, I think, when sushi really started coming into play, I would see chefs make it, but they didn't know that they had to cool the rice down when it's cooked and gummy. I mean, I saw so many bad versions, and to good sushi rice, you can just eat by itself. It has that much flavor.
Yep,
Um,
flavor,
so,
texture.
right. And I just want to tell people that you do IGTV segments, cooking segments that people can watch now on your Instagram. If they
Right.
just type in Hiroko Shimbo and go to the IGTV, you were doing things with lotus root and ginkgo nuts and how to cook them, just little segments that they can catch up on. But you are also doing online cooking classes, so they can find that at your website, Hiroko Shimbo or Hiroko'sKitchen.com. I don't want to forget, we're going to come up to Hiroko's third book, which is Hiroko's American Kitchen, published in 2012. There we go. And this is taking those flavors from Japan and adapting them to the American cuisine. And you brought up miso. I don't know from miso. I know you just did a seminar, but there's white, there's red, there's black, there's chunky, there's smooth, there's rice, there's barley. How does one figure out when they go to the stores? I mean, the Asian stores, if they were smart here, they would have somebody who was teaching or could answer these questions for the Americans. You go in and you take a shot and you go, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's explain. Japan is a long and narrow country, and each region has different climate and associated just food culture is very different in each region, and each region produces different type of miso. And
Okay.
I will give you one story. This illustrate miso culture in Japan. A man raised in Tokyo,
Right.
after marrying a person from Kyoto prefecture, will often make this comment on his spouse miso soup. Wow, this miso soup is completely different from the one that I grew up with. It's sweet, it's unique, but I love her and I love this new miso soup. If he doesn't like the miso soup, the marriage is in trouble. So the miso is just flavor, texture, sweetness, degree of saltness, production method, materials used. It's all different. So here in America, yeah, if you go to Japanese food store or Asian food store, you see many many miso. This is my warning. Some of the misos on the shelves are not worth purchasing because they start with inferior materials, means soybeans and rice, and made in a shortened factory method. So, and this type of miso always sterilized or heat treated, or
Okay.
alcohol is added to stop the fermentation. So the miso is dead. So we can't expect even good flavor or nutritional value from this type of miso. And the interesting thing is, here in America, there are few companies. They make real miso in an artisan way, and I use that miso. One of the company is Miso Master.
Miso master.
Yeah, and I visited the factory, and I assure you that whole process, the choice of the ingredients, organic, they make their own koji rice. The production process is 100% clean artisan, and it's not treated with heat. So the miso is
Okay.
live. So that's a good choice. And they sell uh, lighter color, darker color, medium color one. And the difference of the color is the difference of fermentation period and also the degree of saltness. Young miso, lighter color, not much sodium because fermentation is short. You don't
Okay.
need much salt, and it's like cheese as well. So the more aged, 2 years aged, for example, has a very deep chocolate color, and the fermentation produces more nutrients. So from the point of nutrition, yeah, the longer fermented ones have more nutritional value.
Right. And then there's rice and then there's barley
Yes,
miso.
yes. And barley, most of the miso is the combination of rice and soybeans. The one
Okay.
made in Kyushu, the southernmost island of Japan, they use barley. And I love barley miso. It just completely different flavor. It's a little bit toasty and it's not too salty. I love it.
Well, I think, how would one integrate, let's say, a light miso into American cooking? Would you make it sauces or soups, or where might people use that miso? I saw on one of your IGTVs that in doing the broth, you put a little strainer
Yep,
and the broth was up, and you put in your miso and you broke it down. And so there were no big particles floating in the soup. You were able to lift the strainer out. Where are
exactly.
the best, where's the best place to, let's say, use the light white or yellow miso, adapting it to American cuisine?
Yeah. Okay. You and actually, this book has so many recipes of how to use miso. But
Okay.
you can make soup. Well, you can make Japanese miso soup. You can make a kind of American type miso soup in shown in this book. You can use miso as marinade. You can use miso as the base for dressing, sauces. There are
Okay.
many, many ways.
So, and
And
also, um, you just did a Zoom class about miso with some other experts. I'm wondering if that's going to be up so people can maybe get to that, or you can have a link on your site now that it's been shown.
yes,
Uh,
they sent me the clip, so I will send you the clip information. It's uploaded on my website, hirogoskitchen.com, and also I will share it with you.
okay, that's great. People go, I'm telling them hirokoskitchen.com. And you were talking about southern Japan. You, in recent years, have been offering tours to Japan, to Kyushu, which is that southernmost part of Japan. The tours are small and intimate. You want to tell us, fingers crossed that things go well, that you have a tour coming up in November? Why don't you fill people in on your tours?
Okay, so this tour, the Kyushu, the southernmost island of Japan, had all of the foreign influence came through this island. Chinese, because it's closer to Korea and China. Buddhism, Chinese culture, everything arrived in Kyushu, then marched to Kyoto prefecture.
Okay.
So then the food and the Portuguese, Dutch, they came to Kyushu and introduced their religion, food, culture, and Kyushu has chock full interest of everything, including nature, arts, religion, temples, food, like Aso volcano. It's just quite a trip. So I'm hoping that I can operate this tour in coming this November, November 3rd to 15th.
November 3rd to the 15th. And it's a small group. It's only 10 on the tour.
Yes,
And um, and remind people that you're doing Zoom cooking classes, and they can find that on your webpage, hirokoskitchen.com. They can find more information about the tour and your cookbooks on your webpage. Everything is there. And remind people to look up Hiroko Shimbo on Instagram, and that'll pull up her Instagram page, and look for the IGTVs because she's got little snippets that she teaches. She was teaching at the culinary school in New York before COVID, so now the cooking's from home and teaching. And I don't even know if there's even space in the classes because they sold out the last time I looked. So you have to be on there. And do you have an email thing that you may send to people?
Yes, and actually the miso class, homemade miso class, still open. So please join me to make your own miso, which is just very, very healthy. It's just a wonderful product to have in your kitchen.
And I have to tell people, I think it wasn't a funny story at the time, but you were supposed to do a cooking class at l'Academy, I think in Gaithersburg. And we determined that if you came into Baltimore in the morning or afternoon, that I would drive you to Gaithersburg, because going into DC and getting to Gaithersburg from the train station, and it gave us quality time. Well, as Mother Nature had it, there was an ice storm. The class got canceled. You slept at my house and you fixed dinner for Tom and I. It was great, but there was nothing, and the class got canceled because nobody wanted to ride in the ice storm.
Right.
But I drove you out to Fairfax the next morning. I have two questions that I always ask. What was your ultimate culinary fail?
I don't think I have one. Maybe I have many, but failure is always is a lesson to teach me. So I don't take it as a failure or
Okay.
just a lesson to learn.
Okay. All right. Well, we got that. I think there was a quote somewhere in something you said. You said, "Challenge your spirit. Everything is possible." That's a quote from Hiroko. And obviously, coming here and doing cookbooks in your second language and achieving such great success, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
My mother. My mother deceased last year in September at the age 93. So, but she had a full life. She took care of our three sisters, and I am just so happy to be the daughter of my mother.
Wonderful.
And every day, it's Japanese. I pray for my mom and ask me to give more strength, knowledge, guide me. And I'm just happy being her daughter.
You do her great honor. That is for sure. I want to thank you, remind people, webpage, hirokosKitchen.com, and that'll float up here. And her Instagram, just type in Hiroko Shimbo and her Instagram will come up, and follow her. She is on Twitter as well. I just don't tweet anymore. So I want to thank you, and we will chat again. Thank you so much for sharing your time, and all the best and good health to you, Hiroko.
Thank you, Dara, and thank you for having me with your audience. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to tell people that next week, our guest will be Denise Vivaldo. She's out in California. I know her as a food stylist to the stars, but she's a speaker, writer, author, and everything you want to know about food styling. She's doing some online classes. She will be on the show next week. She's worked with Betty White, Suzanne Summers, and many others. The show will be up on the Facebook page immediately after the show ends, on the JMOR page. You can find it within 24 hours up on jmoreliving.com. It's up there for perpetuity. You can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com for emails. My social is @DaraCooks. And as always, we love it when you share the show with people who you think will enjoy it. It helps us grow the show, and it makes it so much more fun to have more people joining in. As I always say, stay safe, wear your mask, support your local restaurants, and may your plates always remain full. I will see you next week.